Shabbat Shalom. Today's video is sponsored by Chana ben Yamini in memory of Amnon ben Tova. Tiyeh nishmato tzov etzor ha'chaim began eden tiyeh menuchato. If you look at this week's parasha, the whole focus of the spies entering Eretz Yisrael seems to surround around grapes. Before they leave, the pasuk tells us, "V'hayamim yemei bikurei anavim." The days happen to be the days that they're entering the land of Israel was a time when grapes become ripe. And the first place they stop in Israel is called Nachal Eshkol. The Nachal of what? Of grapes. And from there, they actually cut these grapes and they carry them with them. And Rashi brings a midrash that these grapes, this cluster of grapes was so huge. They had to 8 people it took to carry them. And they travel with them for 40 days in Eretz Yisrael as they're walking around spying the land. They're carrying these grapes with them. And the question, what is with the grapes? Yes, Moshe asked them to bring back from the fruit of the land. So why don't they get it on their way home? Why is the first thing when they enter the land, they take these grapes with them? And fascinating, after the story of the Meraglim and the mistake, and Moshe prays on their behalf, Torah discusses the mitzvah of nesachim, of when you bring an offering, a korban and a mizbeach, you have to pour wine as part of the procedure. And again, so the story begins with wine, ends with wine. What's with the grapes and wine? So the Gemara in Sanhedrin has almost a whole page discussing the idea of wine. But just briefly to understand, it says, we all know the rule, it says, Nichnas yain yatsa sod. When wine enters a person, sod comes out. Secrets are revealed. Wine has 2 possibilities in it. It could bring somebody to the greatest heights, but also to fall to the greatest lows. Therefore, the Gemara says, the pasuk is written, tirosh, which means wine, but it's missing the vav. So it could be read as tirash. But we read it tirosh. Why is that, the Gemara asks? The Gemara answers it has 2 potentials. Some people who drink it, tirosh, they become rosh, they become heads, they become leaders, they become great. And others become rash, become empty, become lowly. Wine has 2 potentials. Wine has the ability to lift somebody up. Why? Because wine reveals a sod, reveals a depth. You know, every time we make a blessing, Havdalah, Kiddush, wedding, Brit Milah, is always over a cup of wine. Why? And it's called a kol shel beracha, a cup of blessing. Because every time we make Kiddush, Havdalah, or any happy occasion like a Brit or a wedding, when we make Kiddush over a cup of wine, when we say blessing over a cup of wine, what we're saying is, what I'm doing now, I should reveal the depth and understand what I'm about to do. Wine brings bracha and blessing and reveals the depth of what I'm doing. Meraglim are going to spy out the land of Israel. And unfortunately, they took the grapes, that was their downfall, instead of lifting them up. When they traveled the land, they saw fortified cities, they saw giants, they saw people dying, they saw challenges and difficulties, they saw impossibility. But Moshe tells them, take the grapes with you. Because if they actually used them properly, they would see the depth of the land of Israel, the beauty, the spirituality. The reason why it grows giants is because how much potential is in that land. But they chose not to use the grapes properly. They saw the opposite end of grapes, the downfall. The message for the Meraglim is, when we go through life, if we look at the world superficially, on the surface, we don't see things properly. We see challenges and difficulties. We see horrible things. We see emptiness. When Moshe is telling the Meraglim, walk through life, walk through the land of Israel and see its depth, see its beauty, reveal its secrets. And that's a message for us as we go through life. Don't be superficial. Don't look at things just on an outward surface level. But look for the depth and meaning and beauty behind everything we do. And that's why we make always kiddush and a kos beracha of wine. And that's why we pour wine on the mizbeach when we bring an offering, because we want the secret and depth of understanding of that korban to be revealed. And if we can focus on depth, meaning, and look at the world beyond its surface, we will find beauty and meaning everywhere. Shabbat Shalom.